Hello everyone, and welcome to today's story. Today, I have an exciting and mysterious adventure for you. It's called The Mysterious Letter. This story is about a detective named Alexander Graves and a woman named Evelyn Sinclair. Together, they search for a lost treasure. But as always in great stories, things are not as simple as they seem. Let's begin. It was a cold night in London, in November 1923. A man walked quickly on Baker Street. He wore a long coat and a black hat. Every few steps, he looked behind him. Was someone following him? He stopped in front of a big house. He put a letter in the mailbox and quickly walked away. He looked around to make sure no one saw him. After a few seconds, he disappeared into the fog. Inside the house, Detective Alexander Graves sat in his office. He was reading an old case, but he felt bored. He didn't have a case to solve. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. "Sir, a letter for you." Alexander looked up and smiled. He had not received a letter in days. His servant handed him the envelope. It was old, and the handwriting looked strange but familiar. He opened the letter and read, "Mr. Graves, I have been watching you for a long time. You have solved many cases, but this one is different. If you are truly smart, come to King's Cross Station tomorrow at 11 p.m. I will wear a black hat. Don't be late. This is London's biggest secret." There was no name on the letter. Alexander smiled and said to himself, "Mysterious letters always bring the best cases." The next night, Alexander arrived at King's Cross Station. He looked for a man with a black hat, but he saw no one. It was dark and quiet. Suddenly, someone hit him. It was a woman. She wore a dark dress and elegant shoes. Her small bag was open, and papers fell on the ground. She looked at Alexander with angry eyes. "Be careful," she said. Alexander helped her pick up the papers. One paper caught his attention. The handwriting was the same as the letter. The woman quickly took the paper from his hand. "You don't need to read that, detective," she said. Alexander looked at her closely. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. "My name is Evelyn Sinclair. I think we are looking for the same thing, Mr. Graves." Evelyn was searching for a great mystery: the lost gold caravan. In the early 1800s, a caravan left Britain for India, full of gold, but it disappeared. No one knew where it went. Evelyn had found an old map in her grandfather's papers, but the map was incomplete. It was missing some parts, and that made the mystery even more exciting. Alexander studied the map carefully. "Where is the other part?" he asked. Evelyn smiled. "A dangerous man has it. His name is Leopold Ashford." Leopold Ashford owned a famous casino. Everyone in London knew him. That night, Evelyn and Alexander dressed as a couple and went to the casino. They had to be careful. Ashford sat at the biggest table. When he saw them, he smiled. "Mr. Graves and Miss Sinclair, I think you want something," he said, with a sly smile. Alexander walked to the table. "We want the map, Ashford," he said. Ashford laughed. "What will you give me?" Evelyn leaned forward. "A game. If we win, you give us the map." The game started. They played cards, and after a few rounds, Alexander and Evelyn won. Ashford looked surprised. He gave them the map, but he smiled and said, "This is only the beginning." The map led them to Granada, Spain. Evelyn's grandfather's papers had a strange sentence: "The gold is under the gravestones." That night, they went to an old graveyard. The moon was bright, and the wind made strange sounds. As they walked, Alexander suddenly fell into a hole. Evelyn jumped down to help him. In front of them was an old chest, covered in dust and dirt. They opened the chest, but inside there was no gold. Instead, There was another letter. Alexander opened it and read, "Stop looking for treasure. The real treasure is the person beside you." Evelyn and Alexander looked at each other, surprised. They didn't find gold. They found something even more valuable, each other. And in that moment, they understood. Sometimes the greatest treasure isn't gold. It's the people we meet along the way. Thank you for watching today's story. I hope you enjoyed the adventure of Alexander and Evelyn. Sometimes the greatest treasure isn't gold, but the people we meet along the way. What do you think of their journey? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.